Good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Jarrett in for Lou Dobbs. He's on vacation and breaking tonight. President Trump on his way to Pensacola, Florida for a Make America Great Again rally. Just 9 miles away from the Alabama border, supporters have been lining up all day long to hear the president talk. And we will bring you the president's remarks as soon as he takes the stage. Also tonight, new questions about one of Roy Moore's accusers, Beverly Young Nelson, admitting she added notes beneath what she says is Roy Moore's signature in her high school yearbook. That revelation feeding doubts about her overall story just 4 days before the Alabama voters head to the polls. And meantime, out in California, 6 major wildfires are raging out of control in the southern part of the state. The largest fire exploding to more than 200 square miles, and a new blaze breaking out in San Diego County. We'll have a full report. We begin with our top story. Donald Trump, the president, doing what he does best, speaking directly to the people about his long list of accomplishments in the first year. President is set to address supporters in Pensacola, Florida. Now, bear in mind that is just about 9 miles from the border with Alabama. Fox News Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has our report on what we can expect when the president takes the stage in, well, just under an hour from now.
Greg, good evening. President Trump is spending the weekend in the South. He's got an event in Mississippi tomorrow, Pensacola, Florida tonight, bracketing Alabama without ever setting foot in the state, rallying conservatives to get out and vote on Tuesday.
I, Kirsten Nielsen, do solemnly swear.
Swearing in Kirsten Nielsen as the new Homeland Security Secretary, President Trump today ran through some of the themes he'll articulate in Pensacola tonight.
We're going to get the wall, and we need it. We need it for the drug flow. We need it for people coming into our country. We want to have great people coming into our country. We want to have a merit-based system. We have to get rid of chain migration, all of these things we've been talking about.
The president will be speaking just 9 miles from the Alabama border in a market that reaches some of Alabama's most populous areas. But the White House dismisses the notion that tonight's campaign-style event has anything to do with Roy Moore.
No, it's a campaign event for Donald Trump. I mean, he's the president of the United States. He won Florida when many pundits said he couldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He has a house in Florida. And the people of Pensacola helped put Donald Trump in office. This is a thank you to them.
The Moore campaign confirmed today he will not be attending the rally in a statement saying, quote, he will not be in Pensacola but is grateful to have the president rallying conservatives near Alabama. We are actively encouraging supporters to attend the rally and look forward to victory on the 12th. The White House continues to maintain that the allegations against Roy Moore are troubling, but that it's up to Alabama voters to make a decision about him. This afternoon, Moore's attorney called a press conference to respond to the revelation that his main accuser, Beverly Nelson, embellished an entry she says Moore wrote in her high school yearbook.
The voters are going to have to decide, were they lying then, or are they lying now, or do the voters think they've been telling the truth all along?
A White House official tells Fox News there is nothing in the president's prepared remarks about Moore or his Democratic opponent, Doug Jones. But in campaign rallies, President Trump often goes off script. On Twitter today, the president was offering his full-throated support for Moore, tweeting, quote, last thing the Make America Great Again agenda needs is a liberal Democrat in the Senate where we have so little margin for victory already. Vote Roy Moore. The Republican National Committee has also gone all in for Moore. Last week, the RNC transferring $50,000 to Moore's campaign, and this week adding another $120,000 for phone banks, mailings, and other get-out-the-vote operations. The president's event comes on a day when the Labor Department reported 228,000 new jobs created in November, the unemployment rate dropping to 4.1%. President Trump also pointing out the unemployment rate in manufacturing dropped to 2.6%, the lowest ever recorded. Some staffing changes announced today at the White House. Dina Powell, the Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategy, will be leaving early next year to move back to her family in New York. In a statement, H.R. McMaster called Powell, quote, one of the most talented and effective leaders with whom I have ever served. And while the White House press pool was invited to watch the president and vice president swear in Kirsten Nielsen, the press was ushered out of the Roosevelt Room just as Nielsen was beginning her remarks, before having a chance to ask the president questions, including about his support for Roy Moore. And as he left the White House this afternoon, the president, who more frequently has been coming over to talk to the press, sometimes at length, simply waved and walked to the helicopter. A few questions, including ones about Roy Moore and other issues, were fired his way, but the president just ignored them. Greg?
John Roberts at the White House. John, thanks. Well, tonight's rally in Pensacola, a welcome reprieve for the president from relentless attacks by the Democrats and the left-wing media and the deep state and the D.C. swamp. And it comes on the heels of a major victory for the president's allies on Capitol Hill. The House Ethics Committee has officially cleared House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes of accusations that he disclosed classified information, now opening the way for him to resume full control of the Russia investigation. Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has our report.
From the beginning, I said this was baseless, and it was baseless.
After an 8-month review, the House Ethics Panel cleared the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, of revealing classified information while overseeing the Russia investigation.
I think it gives people in the United States a scene into how dirty this place can be.
Speaking exclusively to Fox News, Nunes said the complaint filed by liberal groups was designed to shut down his investigation that revealed the unmasking or identification of Trump campaign associates by President Obama's appointees in foreign intelligence reports.
Was the ethics complaint legitimate?
No, this was just, I think, a clear design by the left, working in conjunction with parts of our government to keep information away from me and the House Intelligence Committee.
Nunes publicly confirmed for the first time a months-long probe that goes well beyond the Russia case into the surveillance of Americans through the FISA or national security courts.
I believe we have evidence that there is definitely abuses have occurred.
And Nunes pointed to the leaked conversation of General Mike Flynn with the Russian ambassador. And the congressman said he is unaware of any leak investigation by the FBI or Justice Department.
I hate to use the word corrupt, but they become at least so dirty that who's watching the watchmen? Who's investigating these people? There is no one.
Nunes said he will call the Justice Department official recently demoted over his contacts with the firm behind the Trump dossier to testify. The congressman said he believes the Obama Justice Department, from Attorney General Loretta Lynch to her deputy Sally Yates and FBI Director James Comey, may have valuable information.
It's hard to believe that all of those people, there was a very small circle that were looking into the Trump dossier overall.
Today, CNN misreported that Donald Trump Jr. coordinated with WikiLeaks to obtain Clinton campaign emails, later correcting the story because their sources provided the wrong date, and the leaked campaign emails were already public. The Justice Department also released the Attorney General's security clearance application that did not require disclosure of foreign government contacts while in government business, unless he developed a personal relationship.
I think for the most part people thought it had to do with Russia collusion, but we have no evidence of Russia collusion between the Trump campaign.
The federal judge who oversaw General Flynn's guilty plea earlier this month will no longer handle the case. Judge Rudolph Contreras, who was appointed by President Obama, also sits on the National Security Surveillance Court. A court spokeswoman offered no explanation for the recusal, and the Flynn case has been randomly reassigned. Greg?
Catherine Herridge. Catherine, thanks. Well, there are new revelations that special counsel Robert Mueller's legal team is nothing more than a pack of attack dogs with disturbing ties to the Democratic Party. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Mueller's investigator, Andrew Weissmann, attended Hillary Clinton's election night party last November. National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes and the Clinton Foundation, as well as Hillary Clinton herself, in a lawsuit seeking access to her private emails. Well, what about all of that? Joining me now to talk about it, Chris Farrell, who's Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Chris, good to see you. There are so many highly qualified, experienced, and skilled lawyers across America who do not have a political axe to grind. Had Mueller chosen them, it would have lent credibility and integrity to his investigation. He chose not to do that. Are you concerned that the Mueller team, including Mueller himself, have extreme political bias and corrupt motives?
Their credibility is now something less than zero. I mean, it's between the conflicts of interest, and you just outlined a number of them, and then the unlawful or at least highly questionable investigative tactics that have been employed so far. And I have reason to believe that even Chairman Nunes from the Intelligence Committee has been lied to over and over again with respect to this unmasking issue. When you combine all that and you realize that in large part it's the same cast of characters, the same inner circle, who are willfully blind with respect to the Clinton Foundation and Mrs. Clinton's server and Uranium One, et cetera, yet they have excruciating attention to detail on other really minor matters, their credibility is shot. And arguably, there are people involved who aren't just making administrative errors or aren't in some way failing to dot I's and cross T's. They're involved in criminal misconduct, in the abuse of the investigative system and their procedures. This is horrific. There needs to be a special counsel now for the special counsel.
Right. A watchdog looking at the watchdogs.
Correct.
I wrote a column today on FoxNews.com. You can check it out on our front page. It's entitled "Robert Mueller and His Politically Biased Team of Prosecutors Must Go." Let me quote just one part of it, and we'll put it up on the screen. Mueller deliberately assembled a team of partisans with a history of political bias who appeared determined to undo the results of the 2016 presidential election and drive President Trump from office. Because Mueller improperly stacked the deck of his special counsel staff with biased crusaders, he transformed what was supposed to be an impartial investigation into an illegitimate and seemingly corrupt one. To restore integrity, Attorney General Jeff Sessions should unrecuse himself for the limited purpose of cleaning up Mueller's mess. What do you think about that? I've looked into the law, the regulations. There's nothing to prevent Jeff Sessions from stepping in and saying, wait a minute, this is illegitimate. It has the appearance of impropriety, bias, and corruption. I am going to remove Mueller and all of the partisans on that team and replace them with people who are not.
Greg, you nailed it. They need to get fresh blood from the outside. Mueller's been conflicted since day one when it comes to his buddy Comey. The abuse of process and the abuse of investigative powers and authority here, like I said before, I believe is criminal. No one believes anything that they're doing. They spent $7 million in order to go after Paul Manafort with a no-knock pre-dawn warrant and to charge him about spending too much money on his suits, and then go after General Flynn with the absolute thinnest of 1001 false official statement charges. No other charges concerning anything like conspiracy. No one yet can name what the criminal predicate is. What crime occurred?
Right.
No one can tell you. No one.
Well, nobody has had legal standing to challenge the legality of the appointment until somebody was charged. Now we have several people charged who could do it. Let me talk to you about Andrew Weissman, the so-called pit bull prosecutor who has strong allegiance to Democrats. This is a guy who was there at Donald Trump's opponent's, election night party. He's also a guy who wrote a fawning letter to Sally Yates, which is a clear anti-Trump bias. And he's also a guy who has close ties to Hui Chen. He hired her. They have a long history together, and there she is protesting Trump outside the White House, posting it on her Twitter account proudly. Weissman is a guy who has to go. Do you agree?
I couldn't agree more. It's a disgrace that anybody even thought he could get past, the sniff test on this. Here's a guy who's so far hard over anti-Trump and pro-Hillary Clinton. I don't know how anybody can look themselves in the mirror over this one. I would love to see if there's some video isolation of Weissman in the Javits Center, staring at a screen and crying.
Right.
This is a case where the guy's credibility is zero. His own colleagues, there's one assistant U.S. attorney who referred to him as a legal terrorist. This is a guy who goes overboard.
He had an ethics complaint that's 100 pages long. I've read it, in which he's accused of hiding evidence and threatening witnesses in the most unprincipled, thuggish way. We got to leave it at that, Chris.
Sure.
But the bottom line here is Robert Mueller has sabotaged the credibility of his own investigation. Chris.
They're done.
Chris Farrell, thanks very much. Well, President Trump is about to arrive in Pensacola in a moment now. We're coming right back with much more. Please stay with us. President Trump is set to hold a Make America Great Again rally in Pensacola, Florida, just days away from the Alabama special election.
We certainly don't want to have a liberal Democrat that's controlled by Nancy Pelosi and controlled by Chuck Schumer. We don't want to have that for Alabama.
We take up the president's America First agenda with Matt Schlapp and Rachel Campos Duffy. And dangerous wildfires roaring across Southern California for a fifth day. Strong winds and dry conditions feeding new fires that have prompted more evacuations. We'll have the full report next. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're awaiting President Trump's rally in Pensacola, Florida, just about 9 miles from the border of Alabama, where a heated special election U.S. Senate race is getting hotter by the day. Take a look at this. The latest Real Clear Politics polling average shows Republican Roy Moore leading Democrat Doug Jones by 2.3% just 4 days before Tuesday's election. In the meantime, never Trump conservatives are waging a war against Moore. Former presidential candidate Evan McMullen's PAC is spending, well, $500,000 on a set of digital and television ad buys asking Alabama voters to reject Moore on Tuesday. Let's talk about it now with Matt Schlapp, who's chairman of the American Conservative Union, and Fox Business contributor Rachel Campos Duffy. Good to see you both.
Great to be here.
So, Matt, Roy Moore, after the revelations, dropped down in the polls by as much as 10 or 12%. He's bounced back considerably. Is that due to the fact that, President Trump has sort of warmed up to him, or is it just a coincidence?
I think, Greg, the initial reason for that is so many Republican leaders in Washington, D.C. castigated him, and they told Alabama voters what they should and should not do. And I think voters across this country are very tired of D.C. Republicans dictating to them the personal moral choice on how they should vote. And I think it's reverberated and had the opposite impact.
You know, Rachel, right after the revelations, within a week to 10 days, Moore, who'd been leading substantially, took a precipitous drop and was behind substantially. If the election had taken place then, he likely would have lost. But, a month has gone by, and all of this is sort of settled in. People have had an opportunity to sort of look a bit closer at the accusations and their credibility. What do you make of it?
Well, listen, first of all, the polls are saying that he's up 2, maybe 3 points. I think it's more than that. Matt and I both know that the polls are not always accurate. When Donald Trump was up for election, I had so many suburban moms come up to me and whisper, "I'm voting for Trump."
Right.
They felt comfortable telling me that. They probably didn't feel comfortable telling the pollsters that I think the same thing will be happening here. Look, I think the thing that just happened today, the information that dropped about Beverly Young Nelson saying that she in some way changed the yearbook, which was a very convincing thing. It was a physical proof that he had been sort of courting these young teenage high school girls. If you were on the fence about that, that might make you feel a little more comfortable casting the vote for Roy Moore. But more importantly, I spoke to some very prominent Alabamans this weekend when I was in D.C., and they told me that it's not just what Matt Schlapp said, but also they're taking the long view. They're very concerned about the Supreme Court. They understand that this election has consequences for the Supreme Court, and they want to look long-term at that.
And what about all of the other revelations of misconduct, sexual misconduct on Capitol Hill? Al Franken announcing yesterday he's stepping down. Has that affected it, Matt?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think, look, this issue has changed society all over in all these different sectors, from Hollywood to media to politics. I do think there are a lot of women who are coming forward and have a story to tell, and I applaud them for doing it. And but I do think that it has put the Democrats in a very precarious position because, as Rachel knows, with her husband serving in Congress, and they're relatively new to this game, but some of these people have been around Congress for a long time. They have some explaining to do. John Conyers had some explaining to do, and there's probably 20 or 30 others who we're going to hear about, and I don't think this story is over.
Rachel, I only have about 45 seconds here, but
Sure.
The president, you know, this is arguably fairly clever. He's going to have an Alabama audience, but he's actually in Florida, where he has a huge amount of support. He's going to talk about Roy Moore tonight, isn't he?
He might, but I think the smarter thing to do is to talk about his agenda. He has so much to brag about. The record-breaking economic news is incredible. Unemployment down. I mean, the report today about Hispanics, the lowest unemployment ever. Remember, under the Obama administration, 2 to 3 million Hispanics had fallen into poverty. And I know that Alabama's not, we're not talking about Hispanics in Alabama, but there's good news all around. ISIS on the ropes because he's unleashed Mattis on these evil terrorists. I mean, he can brag and convince them that the agenda is more important, and he has lots and lots to brag about.
He has a lot to boast about. It's supposed to be a half-hour speech. My guess is, if he goes through all of the things that he has achieved his first year, it's going to be an hour-long speech. Regardless, we'll be covering it. Rachel, thank you so much. Matt, great to see you as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
You got it.
Be sure to vote in tonight's poll. Do you believe the Dems and their deep state allies are starting to see their smear campaign tactics backfire? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Just a reminder, follow Lou on Twitter at Lou Dobbs, like the show on Facebook, and Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Taking a look at Wall Street, stocks closing at record highs on a strong jobs report. The Dow Jones soaring 118 points, the S&P 14 points, both closing at all-time highs. Happy Friday. The Nasdaq up 27 points, volume of the big board 3.1 billion shares. For the week, the Dow and the S&P posting gains of less than 1%, the Nasdaq down a fraction on the week. And just a reminder, listen to Lou's reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Coming up next, President Trump declaring wildfire-ravaged Southern California a major disaster area as 2 new fires as far as south as San Diego spark overnight. As we continue to wait the president's remarks in Pensacola, Florida, he has just arrived moments ago, so much more. Stick ahead. Breaking news right now. President Trump has just arrived in Pensacola, Florida for his Make America Great Again rally. There you see some of the Secret Service surrounding his limousine. The president landed moments ago at the Pensacola Naval Air Station. It's about 20 minutes away by car to where he'll be speaking, the Pensacola Bay Center. That's where the rally is tonight. There's the president waving to the people there at the naval station, and he'll be escorted over to his limousine, which travels with the president, of course, in a cargo plane, along with the rest of his entourage. And we're, of course, going to bring you the president's remarks as soon as he takes the stage. I'm Greg Jarrett, in for Lou Dobbs. He's on vacation. President Trump today authorizing federal assistance for Southern California as massive wildfires continue to spread across the region. Firefighters now battling blazes stretching from north of Los Angeles all the way south to San Diego County. No end in sight. Fox News senior correspondent Adam Housley is in San Diego County tonight with our report.
The fires in Southern California now stretching more than 150 miles from Santa Barbara to down near San Diego. 2 new fires blew up overnight, raining down embers northeast of San Diego, the firestorm tearing through everything in its path.
The embers are coming, that empty field over there caught on fire, and the neighbors, the whole fence line caught on fire. There's a propane explosion.
As people were trying to evacuate, this fire was being fanned by Santa Ana winds, and people could not get out of their homes fast enough.
Oh. And neither could these horses, a scene of horror and panic at a thoroughbred training center, as workers at the San Luis Rey facility did their best to help these racehorses escape. The flames moved faster than the animals could, and more than 24 didn't make it.
When a tornado hits the Midwest, there's no stopping it. When a hurricane hits the East Coast, there's no stopping it. When the Santa Ana winds come in, there's no stopping them.
President Trump now declaring a major disaster in the state, ordering federal aid to the areas where at least 6 fires have destroyed more than 500 structures, with another 20,000 plus threatened. More than 200,000 people have evacuated the fires that have burned more than 220 square miles. The region's biggest blaze, the Thomas Fire in Ventura County, is now in its 5th day, with nearly 90,000 people still under mandatory evacuation orders.
The magnitude of the winds and the firestorms and how fast things change, you just have to really be alert.
And while the winds are expected to die down over the weekend, that doesn't necessarily make things easier for firefighters.
Santa Ana weakening is going to cause the fire to be much less predictable. It's going to move in different directions, going to be terrain driven, so the crews are going to have to be very careful.
And Greg, tonight the good news is those winds have not yet come back as expected. In fact, they were forecasted to come down here to San Diego County, as we saw yesterday, which fueled this fire, but they just haven't come, giving firefighters precious time to come in and really hammer these areas. Right now behind me, you see the engines here. What they're doing is they're going through and finding all the hot spots, the burned out areas, doing what they can to tamp those down, because if the winds were to come back over this weekend, all it takes is one little spark to, of course, start a massive blaze. And again, the red flag alert does remain in effect here, Greg, through the weekend. Back to you.
Adam Housley live near San Diego. Adam, thank you. We are awaiting President Trump's rally in Pensacola, Florida. We'll bring you the president's remarks. When he takes the stage, there are some folks in the venue armed with Trump Pence banners and all sorts of, look at that. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
President Trump today vowing to build the wall.
We're going to get the wall. If we don't get the wall, you're going to have a lot of very unhappy people, starting with me. We're going to get the wall.
We take up the president's endless effort to secure our borders and make America safe with former Deputy Trump campaign manager David Bossie. And they say elephants never forget, and apparently neither do lions. We'll show you the moment Kiara the lioness is reunited with her former caretaker. We're coming right back.
Republican Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona has moved up the date of his resignation, originally planned to resign in January, but the resignation now effective today. Franks' wife was admitted to the hospital due to an ongoing ailment. A former Franks aide telling the Associated Press that the congressman reportedly pressured her to carry his child, offering her allegedly as much as $5 million to act as a surrogate. Joining me now to talk about what we expect this evening with President Trump at his rally in Pensacola, Florida, is a former Trump campaign manager, David Bossie. He also happens to be co-author of the new book, Let Trump Be Trump. David, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so typically at these rallies, the president has a speech, it's in the teleprompter, and then he goes off prompter, and sometimes with anecdotes and comments that go as long as 7 or 8 or 10 minutes. That's Trump being Trump. Is Trump going to be Trump tonight?
Oh, I fully expect in Pensacola, Florida, we're going to get a full dose of Donald Trump. This is what he does so well. This is what he loves, being with the people, spreading the good news of his administration, the strong economic growth. You know, you look at the job numbers today, 220,000+ new jobs in November, 2.2 million new jobs since he's been elected. Deregulation, tax reform that we're going to probably be talking about this coming week, getting to the president's desk, hopefully by Christmas. It is the good news of his administration. Right. I know the left and the mainstream media wants to tear him down, but there are so many good things to talk about. The president's going to have no problem doing it.
Yeah, I just jotted down a few things since he took office. Jobs up, consumer confidence up, manufacturing up, housing starts up, construction's up, stock market is way up. way up. Economic growth is up so much, 3% in 2 of the last 3 quarters since he took office. Earning and income are up, unemployment is down. So economically, it's a rosy picture.
And Greg, it's all of those things, and it's the confidence, the consumer confidence, the hope, growth, and opportunity message of Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp that hasn't been talked about in over 30 years is back.
But it's contingent, David, on tax reform, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think you're right, and I think that the Dow being this high is expecting tax reform to get done. And that's what this House and Senate, they're working. I hope that they'll come together on their conference committee. I fully expect tax reform to be done.
All right. Let me ask you about the other thing that he is likely to talk about, and that is not only immigration, because now his travel ban is fully in effect, Supreme Court allowing it. There'll still be some litigation.
Sure.
But what about the wall? I mean, that is something that he has been pushing for and moving in the direction of establishing. He'll talk about that, won't he?
You can guarantee at a rally in Pensacola, Florida, letting Trump be Trump would not happen if he wasn't going to talk about immigration and building the wall for our national security. There's no question about it, especially this is the first, big rally that he's going to have where he can talk directly to people after this atrocious Kate Steinle verdict of last week in San Francisco, that embarrassing verdict. It is a travesty of justice, and she would be alive today if the President Obama had built a wall or deported people.
Or just enforce existing law.
That's right.
It's illegal for a state or local government to not cooperate with ISIS. It's literally a statute that was passed 21 years ago. It's mind-boggling that they've been able to get away with it for as long as they have.
And it's in community after community that they've been doing this for all of Barack Obama's terms, and both of those terms. And now this president has changed it, and I think we're seeing lower numbers of crossings. We're seeing lower detentions because there are fewer here. The president, just through the sheer force of his will, just like economic growth, has turned just the volume up on illegal immigration, and we've seen the numbers go down.
All right, David Bossie, thank you very much. Your book's doing great. It's on my Christmas list. Maybe Santa will think I was a good boy this year.
Well, I hope Barnes & Noble will send it to you. Amazon's having a hard time keeping up with demand.
I have no doubt. David Bossie, great to see you.
Thanks very much.
Watch what happens when a lioness named Kiara is reunited with her former caretaker. He rescued the big cat when she was just a cub, and Kiara apparently never forgot. Hugs and kisses all around. Coming up next, President Trump following through on a promise to move our embassy to Jerusalem after his predecessors failed to deliver. Fred Fleiss joins us coming up next to talk about that. And we're awaiting President Trump's rally in Pensacola, Florida. We'll take you there live when the president takes the stage. Stay with us.